Oh, hey there, YouTube. How have you been? How's the wife? How's the kids? Oh my god. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. When did she pass? Oh, I have no I. Right, right. Of course. I'm so sorry, man. I'll just let you be with your thoughts. Oh, it doesn't matter what I was going to say. It's not important. Well, no, it seems a bit inappropriate now. Um, okay, fine. What I was going to say to you was, so I played the dating sim game Boyfriend Dungeon, which no is not a leather daddy game. It is a dungeon crawler where you fight with different weapons, those weapons actually being people in the town that have the power to turn into weapons that you then use to fight in the dungeon, these monsters that are appearing throughout town. This is something that the game just says like is a thing, and it's fine mostly, like you don't really have to look too hard into it. That is basically the game. You fight with the weapons, and then when they turn back into humans, you try to date them. Boyfriend Dungeon. It's a cute cartoony dating sim with a dungeon crawler gameplay element and also some surprisingly intense discourse surrounding it. This discourse began over one specific storyline in the game. Now, a whole year after the game actually released, I wanted to take a look at it and the controversy that surrounded it, but if I'm going to discuss it, I'm going to play it first and experience the whole thing. Boyfriend Dungeon was a game that released on August 11th, 2021 from Kit Fox Games, and initially was a huge success, with a massive queer fandom immediately forming around it, and people on the internet falling in love with the characters presented. The LGBTQ community is constantly starved for more media directed at them, and the girls ate this shit up. It was a game that certainly felt like a labor of love, so the response was not surprising. However, a main part of the story involved a character that stalks the main character, which led to a lot of conversations. YouTuber Sarah Zed actually briefly touched on this topic in her ship discourse video, which I can link below. Many believe that the trigger warning was not good enough for the content that was presented, and most of these combated tweets ended up being deleted, but there are still records around. The game was only out for 3 days before the community folded in on itself, attacking the game, the creators, the voice actors, and even fans who disagreed. But was the warning they presented actually inaccurate for what the game gave you? So I played Boyfriend Dungeon, and let me just get a couple things out of the way. First of all, half of the dateable characters are not men. One of them is a cat, which at first I was like, but no, you just befriend the cat. All the people are dateable, but it certainly should be called Partner Dungeon or Significant Other Dungeon. There are certainly more than just boyfriends, but I know Boyfriend Dungeon, I guess, rolls off the tongue more. If I was being real honest, I don't think any of them really roll off the tongue, but it's fine. It's not like an actual complaint I have. In the beginning of the game, you move here for the summer, your cousin gets you set up, and you go meet Isaac, a character that can turn into a sword, and you start exploring a monster-filled dungeon in the town mall. There you start discovering weapons through the dungeon, which are other people that have been kidnapped. A piece of their sword form was broken off, and they were basically left there to die. Once you meet these characters, you can later use them as swords in the dungeon, which allows you to help build friendship with them so that you can actually work on dating them back in the town when they're actual people. One of the first characters you meet in the game is a character named Eric. He is not someone who can turn into a weapon, but is a friend of your cousin. The date honestly doesn't go horribly. I mean, it can if you pick certain choices, but you can basically get out of there without a scratch. But as you continue to explore the dungeon and go on dates with the other townspeople, Eric will start appearing at certain dates, and will start leaving items at your house and will start texting you even when you tell him to back off. It's non-stop. He is the antagonistic character of the game that is stalking you. That is what the trigger warning was about, but I think we need to make something clear. The girlies on Twitter were really upset that they weren't given a proper warning, basically accusing the game of holding them hostage during the storyline. But as someone who has just played the game, that is an extreme exaggeration. Yes, I knew about the stalking plotline beforehand and I was actually going in looking for it, but after how the discourse described it, I thought Eric was going to sneak into your apartment and watch you sleep or something. I was actually slightly excited for it, being a sicko myself, because I was hoping that it would diverge into a Doki Doki Literature Club type story or maybe a Secret Dream Daddy ending, but no, not really. He's creepy, yeah. He certainly is trying to vie for all of your attention, but other than that, you can basically ignore most of him up until the end. The bigger plot point is that Eric is the one damaging the sword people, I don't know, the people that can turn into swords, or knives, or scythes. It's actually not just like, it's any weapon. So maybe I shouldn't call them sword people, maybe they're like weapon people. They're like the second cousin to what I think the NRA wishes they were. The point is, that Eric is the one leaving the sword weapon people in the dungeon to die with like a piece of their sword missing. He is the one that is actually attacking all the other townspeople, and he is taking those pieces of swords and putting them together into what I would call a sword Frankenstein monster. The logic behind that, I have no idea, but this game honestly tosses logic out the window, which I appreciate because it's very much a who cares, let's just enjoy it, and I was able to enjoy it. The point is, Eric is kidnapping and assaulting people in town, which seems like a much more intense plot than the stalking element, which is really only a slight portion of the game, though it is progressing the story forward. Now, on one hand, there were people in the feud arguing that they just wanted a dating sim, no stalking plot, they just wanted it to be cute and normal, and no antagonistic thing at all, especially if they found it bringing up a painful memory or a triggering moment, and that is understandable. Another argument was that they gave you the option to turn off text messages from a character named Mom, and since they were able to opt out of that, they should have been able to opt out of the stalking storyline, instead of forcing it upon the audience. But on the opposite side, people thought this was a huge over-exaggeration, the game was fine, stop attacking indie game studios. Well, I'm inclined to agree with the second option. I wanted to play the game first to have a solid opinion, and now that I've played it, I still agree with the second option. Boyfriend Dungeon came out around the same time as a game called 12 Minutes, which, another slight spoiler, has an intense assault scene and absolutely no trigger warning. AAA games have intense, graphic, and horrifying scenes like this all the time, and yes, you probably expected those games to have less of a PG storyline, but it's a common thread that games with a focus on LGBT visibility are usually criticized much harsher compared to other games that can just do whatever the hell they want. But we should probably look at the trigger warning. So, here it is. The medium was designed and developed with a diverse team of various beliefs, political views, and ideologies. It touches upon highly sensitive subjects with the intent of treating them seriously. Despite this, some players may find certain scenes and themes triggering. This was their original content warning, basically telling the player that yes, there are topics in this game that are not 100% sunny and perfect. We will go into some shit, be ready. But it didn't mention stalking specifically, which was a big argument from the haters. They were pissed to spend money on a game that included certain scenes with unwarranted affection. And Kitfox Games did answer, apologizing for their content warning not mentioning the stalking and emotional manipulation, promised to update it, and they did. The new one says, "This game may include references to unwanted advances, stalking, and other forms of emotional manipulation. Play with care." This is certainly a more specific version of the warning. The backlash was so large and so swift that the game studio immediately had to update their content warning, but some players didn't think it was enough, wanting the option to opt out entirely, like the text messages from the mom. They even began sending hate to the voice actor for Eric, which, if it wasn't obvious, is absolutely uncalled for. However, they're misinterpreting a lot about narrative structure and how much power an audience can actually hold when a game is already released. So these text messages from the mom character are basically removable in case someone does not have a good relationship with their own mother and doesn't want to see the mom texts. Personally, even that feels a bit intense, specific, and unnecessary, but I'm not going to chastise a company for trying to think proactively. So sure, if you want, the mom text won't appear. But Mom isn't a character in the game, she doesn't have a plot. Unlike Eric, she is not the main driving force of the external conflict. She basically just asks about who you're dating and is super nice the entire time. Mom as a character is removable because she only exists in these cute little conversations. However, Eric as a character creates the initial conflict, the swords being injured and ditched in the dungeons. He pushes the Act 2 conflict, creepily leaving things at your door, appearing randomly during your dates, etc. And he creates the final conflict, which is that his Frankenstein monster starts hunting you down throughout town, and you have to stop it and Eric before it hurts you and the other people. And at the end, Eric learns the error of his ways and actually apologizes to you. It's a happy ending. The bad guy realizes the damage he caused and stops. Some users online that experienced real-life stalking even mentioned that they enjoyed this storyline. It was a way to help them process their own experience. Other than that, there is nothing intense in this game. You fight monsters and you date your weapons that are also people. Eric only exists in these main plot moments and is ignorable for the rest of the game if you choose to do so. You can also visit him at his store, but I never did and I got through the game without doing it. But he is a purposeful character. He exists so that there is a story. The option of opting out of his storyline is basically asking them to delete their entire plot of the game. LGBT-focused games already come under constant scrutiny, so having queer people asking to sanitize this game even more because it wasn't exactly what they wanted feels more regressive than protective. Basically, the main issue that has come up is not that Kitfox Games should have released Boyfriend Dungeon with a stronger trigger warning, but that its audience should not expect art to be polished and perfectly presented to everyone. Sometimes things with a narrative in them, like a video game, have bad things happen because that's how conflict begins. Boyfriend Dungeon could easily have been much worse if they included things like bad endings or even upped the intensity of the stalking elements, but they kept it toned down because they knew that dating the other characters was the main selling point of the game. This is just a plot point, and not even that intense of a plot point. Now, that's not to say Boyfriend Dungeon isn't without faults. Personally, advertising a dungeon crawler game that only has like 2 main dungeons felt a bit too small for the game itself. It's easily completable in like 1 day if you commit to it. The price isn't insane, but I expected a bit more gameplay than what I got. And also they include a character named Sunder who is, well, a slut. He's the flirty one, and also kind of a vampire, also may have killed someone, which felt much worse. But if you date him, no matter how much you bond, he will always break up with you at the end of the game. I get that they were trying to show that this character can't be trusted, but come on, it's a dating sim. Let me marry the filthy slut. Dream Daddy let me do it. But those issues are small and not worth any discourse. Boyfriend Dungeon shouldn't be receiving backlash like that at all if you actually look at what the game was. And many fans of the game felt the same way. This back and forth wasn't justified. So 1 year later, Boyfriend Dungeon remains a fun game with a moderate but passionate fan base. They actually just released a Secret Weapons DLC on August 17th, which hopefully will answer my critique about the lack of actual gameplay that was provided. But even with time continuing on, that fandom clash at the beginning will follow its reputation endlessly. Small indie games like this should be able to release without the community knocking each other down. And until that happens, any queer game trying to discuss even slightly triggering topics will suffer. Anyway, that's all I have to say. A real gamer moment for me today. I realized I haven't been telling people to like subscribe to my videos, so maybe I should start doing that. So if you want to, it's up to you in the end. But this is an example of me ranting about things that literally only me and 5 people care about. So if you want more of that, here we go. And maybe if you subscribe, I'll even clean up the fucking cups all over my table. Anyway, if you want to hear me rant about shit, hit the little bell thingy. Yeah, that's it. Have fun crawling around looking for boyfriends. I will see you guys later.